Good evening, everyone, or afternoon. It's dark in here. I'm ready for evening. We had such a jam-packed morning. I want to start actually with the housekeeping, which those of you who are here this morning, if you have an empty seat next to you, raise your hand. And if you're entering the cinema in the dark and you're looking for a seat, find somebody with their hand up so you can find a seat. Thanks. So, as she said, I'm Mary Cerruti, and I'm the executive director of the Walker Art Center, and I'm really thrilled to welcome all of you here for this panel on creativity in the Midwest as part of the inaugural North Star Summit. It's an honor to host this event that's bringing together so many smart, creative people working across different sectors to examine and discuss issues and ideas that will shape our future. I came to Minnesota about 6 years ago to take this role, and I've often been asked by colleagues on the coasts and actually around the world, how did the Walker Art Center, a world-class contemporary art museum that focuses on experimentation and the avant-garde, end up in Minneapolis? And, we've heard a lot about the, Midwestern grit, but I believe that the Walker thrived in Minneapolis because Minnesotans are genuinely curious people. I've learned that Minnesotans want to be in conversation with the most compelling ideas of our time. And people in Minnesota value creativity and they embrace imagination. And I think that's what the Walker is about, and that's what this summit is about. So it's really great to be here with this community today to celebrate that and to learn from each other. We have a really packed day, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel. Musician, speaker, and writer Dessa has made a career of bucking genres and defying expectations. Her resume as a musician includes performances at Lollapalooza and Glastonbury, performances with the Minnesota Orchestra, and top 200 entries on the Billboard charts. Congratulations. The track she contributed to the #1 album, The Hamilton Mixtape, has notched over 20 million streams. As an author, she's written for the New York Times and the National Geographic Traveler and published a memoir and essays titled My Own Devices. She regularly lectures on art, science, and entrepreneurship. Best-selling novelist Curtis Sittenfeld is the author of 7 novels, including romantic comedy, Prep, American Wife, Eligible, and Rodham, and 2 story collections, and other things, of course. Her books have been selected by the New York Times, Time, EW, and People magazines for their 10 best books of the year. Her work has been optioned for television and film and translated into 30 languages. Her short stories have appeared in The New Yorker, The Atlantic, and the Best American Short Stories anthology. Award-winning chef Gavin Kaysen is the owner of Soigné Hospitality Group in Minneapolis, which includes acclaimed restaurants Spoon and Stable, Demi, and Mara Restaurant and Bar. With these ventures, he has redefined dining in the region and transformed the Twin Cities restaurant scene. Kaysen is a 2-time James Beard Award winner and is regularly recognized by the field. Beyond restaurants, Kaysen also co-founded KZ Provisioning with chef Andrew Zimmern. He's president of Team USA for Mentor, which is the world's most rigorous cooking competition. And he has also published 2 books. Lastly, our moderator, Ernesto Lodoño, is a correspondent on the national desk of the New York Times, where he's worked since 2014. He's the author of Trippy, The Promise and Perils of Medicinal Psychedelics, a book that blends memoir and reportage to take readers inside a wondrous field that straddles spirituality and healthcare. Earlier in his career, Ernesto worked at the Washington Post, where his assignments included covering the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the Arab Spring, the Pentagon. Ernesto was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia. He has lived in Miami, Dallas, Washington, D.C., Baghdad, Cairo, New York, Rio de Janeiro, and currently lives here in Minneapolis. With that, I'll turn it over to our panel. We'll join you on stage.
Hello. Thank you all for being here. Since this is the first panel after lunch, we're going to do our best to keep you awake.
That's true.
And I want to kick it off by acknowledging that we are all living through really unsettling times when a lot of the, I think, foundational pillars of the American experiment feel quite shaky. And I'm interested in how each of you are thinking about the role art or creative energy can play in this moment, and how each of you are meeting this moment, which may assume facts not in evidence. And I'll start with Curtis. How are you thinking about this moment, and how is it shaping your writing?
That's a big question to start with. I would say, I mean, in terms of how am I thinking of this moment, I feel very concerned a lot of the time. And I mean, I think there's probably many ways to answer the question, but I think that there are times when I will think like, you know, things, I'm 50, there are things that I've never seen anything like them in my lifetime that now happen on a daily basis. Like, I have children, you know, and I'll think like, is it like pointless that I sit in a room by myself and like make up situations and people and like have them talk to each other? And then, and I mean, the answer could fairly be like, yeah, it kind of is. But I would say the flip side of that is I do think about the role that like fiction, like consuming fiction or reading fiction or music has in my life. And I think, well, maybe I can be that for someone else. And even, I mean, it's like partly, like I do write sometimes overtly political books, but then also just like entertainment, or like there are a lot of people out there like fighting the good fight who maybe like also want to just like read a novel about like people kissing before bed, so.
I don't know. I'm in a kitchen the whole time. I'm not reading that book. But yeah, let's do it.
You help us eat our feelings.
I do. My business is totally different than that. But now I'm going to go to work tonight and think to myself, like, when should I get off the line and write that book about kissing before bed? I don't know. The restaurant business it's an escape for a lot of people, or going to a restaurant. I mean, you know, what we often think about, I mean, very simply, the word restaurant comes from the word restoration and to be restored. But as a society, we look at restaurants as a rateable experience and not a restorable experience. And if you would go out to eat and intentionally decide to yourself that you are going to find restoration from the experience and not walk away and rate it 1 through 10, your dining experience will be completely different. And so, you know, one of our restaurants, Demi, the reason that we created that restaurant, I wrote in my journal, what is the definition of fine dining? And it took me 2 years to come to the realization that it's nothing more than a personalization of the experience that you provide to that one guest. So it's 20 seats in that restaurant. We have 12 people working in that restaurant. And the intention of that entire restaurant is to create restoration. And it's fascinating because people rarely come in and take pictures of their food. They rarely document the experience. I don't have TikTok, but they tell me that it's not on TikTok a lot. I've never seen more people cry inside of that restaurant than any other restaurant. And it's because there's this intentionality of taking care of them in a way that is not transactional.
Why do they cry?
Just because they're overwhelmed by the experience of being taken care of.
Huh?
I want to go there. Cry.
I'd love to have you come anytime.
We both said I want to go, and then you just turned to Curtis and said that you'd love to have her come.
You can come too.
Okay, then.
I want to go with Dessa.
Okay, yeah.
I got you.
Table for two.
+1.
Yeah.
I think my experience is spun up. I don't have anything quite as like settled and philosophical and confident. I feel scared a lot of the time. You know, most of the songs that I write are also interpersonal. You know, you're sorting out stuff with a dude, you're sorting out stuff with your mom, you're sorting out stuff with a friend. But of the political songs that I have written and that I'm gearing up to release now, I feel both afraid that I'm going to be insufficiently brave in a moment that asks for real bravery to stand up, and that I'm going to try to be really brave and get something wrong for which I'm going to be pilloried. So yeah, I think I'm in a moment of like crying in a studio alone, and not because I feel like I'm very well taken care of, but I do feel like, you know, I do spend too much time on social media, readily by my own admission, to kind of do the promo stuff. And I find that it really seeps in, even though I know better, even though I know that it isn't probably healthy to invest so much emotional energy there. I find myself disappointingly sensitive to the responses there. Everything from the good stuff to the, to the threats. Yeah.
I watched you perform recently, and it was like a super joyous event, and the energy was like palpable in the room. And then there was this moment where you acknowledged that the bandmates that you were initially supposed to perform with couldn't be there because they were from South Africa and they didn't get their visas approved. And you spoke out about this. You acknowledged it head on. I'm wondering, was that hard? Did you want to kind of like make this, kind of insert this really heavy moment into a joyous evening? And what made you kind of, say the quiet part out loud?
Yeah, I mean, probably also like I don't want to take too much credit for like standing up in front of 600 people who already decided they like me, right? Like, it was kind of I was playing to my own crowd, so there wasn't too much skin on the line in that way. But yeah, I'd been to South Africa to rehearse with this group for weeks, and they've been here many times, and this administration decided not to grant them the visas they would have needed to perform. And there will be blowback to that. There was blowback to that, and saying that out loud. And to be honest, I think for the most part, it's been pretty civil, but also because I think of the accessibility of social media, it really does just take one or two threats that you're not sure how seriously you should take them. Do they really know where you live or not? Right? And that is the part I think that makes it scary, but you're not even sure how scared to be. It's a kind of airborne, ambient, low-grade paranoia until something bad happens, which is not a place of joy and thrive. Yeah.
Tough place to be.
Yeah.
Curtis, you were enticed a few months ago to compete with ChatGPT to see who could write the best short story in the voice of Curtis Sittenfeld, right? And then like readers needed to figure out, which is the real deal and which is the machine-generated one.
They didn't have a bias.
Right. What was that like, and how concerned are you about what AI may do for all of our careers and livelihoods?
So, by the way, isn't this supposed to be like the creative? It's like the fun, cheerful after lunch, like how to have your own like moment of like creativity every evening or something.
We'll get to that.
Okay, so I'm super worried about AI. So it was actually, time flies. This was more than a year ago. It was probably
Wow.
it was probably like 13 months ago, but it was. The prompt was for AI, which the editor at the New York Times did. It was for the opinions page, but was like write in a story in the style of Curtis Sittenfeld, and then I also wrote a story in the style of Curtis Sittenfeld that was about people kissing actually, and and I
On a swan.
Huh?
On a swan.
On a swan boat on Lake Como. Yeah, exactly. So the one here, not in Italy. So anyway. But
on brand.
I know. I'm kind of Minnesota. I've only lived here since 2018, but I'm kind of Minnesotan. But anyway, I thought that the AI's story was sort of like soulless. Like every sentence was proficient, but they kind of added up to nothing, or like it didn't have the sort of like sweat of like a human. But I will say, like I experimented by saying, I think I did like a version to kind of know what I was up against, and it spit it out, I think in like 17 seconds. And so like I spent 3 weeks doing something that I've spent like 20 years doing professionally. And then it was like watching this thing, and since then, twice, I think that it's rapidly improved. I mean, again, it's cannibalized. Like, literally, I'm one of many writers where my novels were fed into it. So it has, like, access from the source. But twice, as jokes, friends of mine have said, like, I asked AI to write a few paragraphs about, like, where we should meet for lunch, and they send it to me. And it's actually so kind of, like, mocking, or feels mocking to my writing in like a kind of hilarious, disturbingly like affectionate way, that I was like, wait, is this really AI, or did you my talented friend do this? And they're like, no, it's really AI. So I don't think any of us should feel too relaxed, unless we're on the side of AI, then we should feel totally relaxed.
Wow, that's scary.
I know.
Hopefully it doesn't know how to cook.
Right, actually, that's great.
You know,
You're like the best.
That's
well,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Wait, can I ask a follow-up on that? Because
Yeah.
I've been to an event where it was like AI generated recipes, and then humans would cook them.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have is it just like that just does not interact with our universe? Like, is there really no concern or way in which you'd be excited about AI either way?
I would be excited if it could figure out a way to take reservations for me. Because otherwise I pay people to say no. No, I'm sorry, I can't get you in tonight. It's like I'd like them to figure out like how can you move everything around. But in terms of cooking and recipes, no, because it changes. I mean, if the menu changes all the time, if the ingredients change, like we have a great pasta program at Spoon and Stable, and every 3 weeks we make all the pastas in the restaurant. And me and all the chefs sit down and we eat all of the pastas and we take rigorous notes on them because the humidity or the temperature outside alters the way the flour is. Wow. And so it changes the way the texture is and the density of the pasta. And so I get really frustrated when it's just off a little bit. I'm a little controlling. So we taste it all to just make sure, like, I can't figure that out. Like that, it's 6 palates that taste that.
Right.
So you're the only one on this stage who's going to have a job in 5 years.
I hope so.
That's what you're saying.
I'll take it. I'll cook for everyone. Be my pleasure.
In my world, yes, it's going to change everything. It's already started. Similarly, like the Dessa song, I don't know that I'm going to be the best person who wrote a Dessa song. Like, it's getting really good. It's still, still a difference, but like Deezer, which is a French platform, kind of like Spotify, it's what you would listen to, streaming services. They're the only platform that I know of that reports how much of their music is AI generated at this point. And as of April this year, 28% of the new music that's uploaded is entirely AI generated. So, for musicians who often thread or braid together a lot of varied income sources, right? You have some shows, you're selling some stuff, you're selling swag, right? Our music being played in like a restaurant, would be a small portion of our income. And a lot of restaurants, understandably, their margins are tight, are saying, well, I don't need human music if we can get AI music that doesn't necessitate this same kind of compensation structure, right? I don't want to pay ASCAP. I don't want to pay the businesses that collect those little pennies to redistribute them to musicians. So I think cat's out the bag. And at the same time, I'm aware of like how I can sound like the crotchety old man yelling, "Get off my lawn," right? Like when I started singing, my grandma's going, "You've got to project," because she hadn't heard Elliott Smith, who like sings like this close to a microphone and layers his voice 10 times. Like the microphone was called the electronic crutch at its inception. So I think there's a tension between, at least in music, between art and tech. That's a long time running now. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting.
I wonder, the three of you, have chosen to anchor your careers in the Midwest. I wonder if that feels like a deliberate choice, and if you have thought about the trade-offs of having been based in New York or LA or the cities that are bigger, cultural hubs with more money, with more agents, with more press. What are the trade-offs?
I think I might be. You guys both have lived in New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have not lived. I've lived elsewhere on the East Coast, but I would say two things. Like I simultaneously, I love living in the Midwest. I have lived not as many places as you, but I think I've lived maybe like 10-ish places in my life. And I think Minneapolis is the best. I'm not just saying that because it's a Midwestern Ideas Festival, but I feel like that Minneapolis. So I lived in St. Louis prior to this. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've lived in Philadelphia, D.C., Boston. But I feel like in Minneapolis, it's kind of a perfect place to be a writer because it's big enough that there's like lots of writers doing lots of things like podcasts, poetry, like the aviation journalist for the Wall Street Journal, our friend Andrew, like just to give a very specific example. But then it's like small enough that everyone's so everyone knows each other and is nice to each other. So it's like not too many, not too few, and so that's really wonderful. And I also do feel, and I'd be curious about for you in terms of like having lived in New York or living in New York, that at times I think like sometimes like someone recently said to me like, oh, like I spoke at a school in Massachusetts and they were like, we've been trying to get you for years and like we reached out, I'm telling you that because it makes me look good. No one says that. They were like, and they were like, your agent said that you were busy, and I was like, well, I am busy, but it's like driving my kids to Michael's to get art supplies, or it's like I'm at CVS. Like it's not like I feel like that you like it's. I think it's like really healthy to feel like a somewhat normal person and like not, I mean, I think it's kind of, again, I'm curious, like my idea of New York is like you probably both were like hobnobbing with glamorous people all the time, and that's maybe kind of silly anyway, but I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, so I moved back home. I grew up here, but I moved back home from New York City, and I was in New York for about 9 years. And at the time when I decided to move back home and open my businesses here, well, I mean, I only had the idea of one restaurant, and that changed. But it was kind of like a shake in our profession. Like people were like, "Wait, what? He's leaving New York City to go where? And then why?" But for me, it was very intentional. I had sat with the idea of leaving the city for many years, because if the city kicks you out, it's different than when you decide to leave the city. And I was ready to leave the city. I still love New York. It's one of my favorite cities in the world. I love visiting there. I love seeing my friends and my family and everybody who still is in that city. But I saw an opportunity to come back home, raise my kids near my family, and so they could be with their grandparents and see what that's like, because I work on the holidays, I work at night, I work on weekends. They play sports now that they probably wouldn't be able to play if we lived in the city. Their life is totally different now. I mean, even when we moved to Minneapolis, my oldest son, he's 16 now, his name's Emil, we pull up to the house and there's like a playground in the backyard, and he's like, "Daddy, is that our playground?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "We don't have to wait in line?" I'm like, "No, it's not Central Park, it's all yours." He's like, "Nobody can be on the swing?" But I was happy to be back home. I mean, I will always miss parts of the city, but in the food business, the way that it's changed in the last 10 to 15, really the last 15 years, is that the guests are so well traveled. It doesn't matter where you live. If you cook delicious food, if you give genuine service, if you care about hospitality, you will be a busy restaurant. And to be honest with you, I had the New York Times in my restaurant here in Minneapolis more than I ever had them in New York City.
Wow.
We got, we see more press come here now for that because they want to talk about what's happening. It's easy when it's in their backyard, so to speak. So there's a lot of opportunity as long as you treat it that way.
I think for me, like my favorite part of the job in a lot of ways of being a musician, and my least favorite part of the job is touring. I really like to see how other people live around the world, and it's lousy for your knees. But, for a long time, a lot of people, when I said where I was from, they would go like, "Yeah, the race cars," and I was like, "No, that's Indianapolis." Like this is. And there was a lot of me being like, "If you take the country and you fold it in half, it's right where your finger meets the." And I feel like my feeling about Minneapolis is it's a lot like when you talk about your family. It's like you don't say about my mom.
Yeah.
Unless you're my brother, then oh my God, what is wrong with her? And so I think in some ways, like I think Minneapolitan, like we can in the Twin Cities, I think we can be boosters of the city, but also, we got some room to grow, right? Or 2020 certainly illustrated that in no uncertain terms, right? George Floyd, and I think that like the arts culture here has, because you didn't think that there was going to be somebody from Sony in the back, you worked with people of all sorts of genres, whereas I think that the demarcations and the lane lines are more clearly marked in LA and in New York because there's just more industry, and here there's no rules because nobody's watching. There's no cops, right? We could just do whatever we want to do. Like it's heavy metal and it's choirs. And then when the first time we did that in Chicago, like somebody threw a beer. Yeah. And so
Did you catch it?
I did not. But I do think that that's some of our strength is our DIY ingenuity, the fact that we can be connected, the Goldilocks vibe that you're talking about. I think sometimes though, one of our weaknesses, if we're talking in fam, is like I think there can be a tallest poppy sort of phenomenon where like don't get stuck don't try to do something too big. I think ambition can be a bad word here in a way that it can sometimes be more celebrated in other places. Ambition that puts its neck on someone else sucks. Ambition that dreams big and is willing to risk to try to do something uncharted and glorious, that's exciting to me.
well said.
That's not a flaw. Yeah.
I have a million questions, but we wanted to leave some time for each of you to read a little bit about your work so that people will be enticed to spend some time with your books, your food, and in Dessa's case, she has so many talents, it's unnerving. But my favorite Dessa is her poetry. So she's going to wrap this event by reading a poem, and you all better give a standing ovation.
Wait, so are we going in order?
So we're going to go in order.
Okay.
Curtis is going to read from American Wife, which is one of 2 novels that imagines a fictional version of a first lady from our recent history.
So this novel actually came out in 2008, but I decided, sometimes people will say to me, like, there's this part in one of your books, I don't remember which one, it's like a love letter to the Midwest, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's page 52 of American Wife. So the person who's saying this is born, this is a little confusing. It's Laura Bush, but she's born in Wisconsin in the novel. It's loosely inspired by Laura Bush. And also, okay, so I wrote this before I lived in Minnesota, and it's kind of like unnecessarily complimentary to Wisconsin in a way that I didn't.
Just read it.
I know, but okay, that's the one.
Dive in.
Okay. Then we were back in Wisconsin, a place that in late summer is thrillingly beautiful. When I was young, this was knowledge shared by everyone around me. As an adult, I've never stopped being surprised by how few of the people with whom I interact have any true sense of the states between Pennsylvania and Colorado. Some of these people, she grows up to be First Lady, some of these people have even spent weeks or months working in such states, but unless they're Midwesterners too, to them the region is nothing but polling numbers and caucuses, towns or cities where they stay in hotels whose continental breakfasts are packaged donuts and cereal from a dispenser, whose fitness centers are a single stationary bike and a broken treadmill. These people eat dinner at Perkins, and then they complain about the quality of the restaurants. Admittedly, the area possesses a dowdiness I personally have always found comforting, but to think of Wisconsin specifically, or the Midwest as a whole, as anything other than beautiful is to ignore the extraordinary power of the land, the lushness of the grass and trees in August, the roll of the hills. Far less of the Midwest is flat than outsiders seem to imagine. That rich smell of soil, the evening sunlight over a field of wheat, or the crickets chirping at dusk on a residential street, all of it has always made me feel at peace. There is room to breathe. There is a realness of place. The seasons are extreme, but they pass and return, and the world seems far steadier than it does from the vantage point of a coastal city. The Midwest is quietly lovely, not preening with the need to have its attributes remarked on. It is the place I am calmest and most myself. I actually, in true Midwestern fashion, there's like a more specifically insulting passage in there toward the coast, and I cut it out. You can read it.
And don't miss her latest book, which is a short story collection called
Show, Don't Tell.
Show, Don't Tell. If you read it, wear pearls because you'll be clutching them often.
That's an endorsement, by the way.
Yeah.
That's a recommendation.
I think Gavin is going to read from his book.
For my iPhone.
Yeah.
So I have our second book we created was called the Synergy Series, and so we created a dinner series called the Synergy Series at Spoon and Stable. We've done it, I think, 7 or 8 years now. But the intention behind the dinner series was to bring in 4 guest chefs every year to cook with our team and to serve the guest. And the reason was because I noticed often that the young cooks and the servers and people that were working for us didn't have the the life's lottery ticket to travel and work all over the world and be in places, they were here. And so they never were exposed to something that I was lucky enough to be exposed to. So I thought, well, I can bring them all here. They're all my friends. And so we've done this. And so we got to a point where we had done 6 or 7 years of it. And I said, let's turn it into a book. So 100% of the proceeds go to a charity called Mentor, which I founded as well. But it helps young cooks travel the world and see the world and work in different places, and we pay for it. It's happened. So we've given around $4 million away for that so far. So this is a part of the book. Grant Achatz, who is the chef and owner of Alenia in Chicago, he's doing a pop-up in Tokyo right now. He was talking about collaboration, which is a big part of what we do. So he says, when everyone is aligned and passionate about the pursuit of excellence and committed to constant evolution, the results can be truly extraordinary. The journey is as important as the destination, and in the realm of hospitality, collaboration propels us towards creativity. Collaboration is often a fascinating and unpredictable journey, especially when the chefs who bring these diverse approaches and styles to the table. In our collaborations, the key is to encourage our environment of mutual respect and openness while finding common ground, understanding each other's strengths, and leveraging the unique aspects of our individual styles to create something extraordinary for the guest. So.
I'm going to stand because I don't often read sitting.
Because you're Dessa. Let's go.
This is an instructional poem. It's called How to Stage Dive. You scared? No. Pay attention to your posture while singing and practicing guitar. High school is a good time to start. At your first open mic, speak and sing more slowly than feels natural. Time moves differently up there, and it always will. The humblest shows in coffee shops or rec centers will be the most important of your career because the shy kid in the back grows up to work for Warner. Stand by the merch booth after the show. If you played well and you have a Sharpie in your hand, it will occur to somebody to ask for an autograph, and then a line will form. Carry reserves of aspirin, allergy medicine, and hot sauce. This will double your value to the touring party. No one is named, "Hey, sound man." Thank you, Doug. Do not trash the green room. Little clubs are owned by the same people who own big clubs, and you will have to come back to Omaha someday. Hire people that you trust. Keyboard can be learned. Character cannot. Yes, a grilled cheese sandwich can be made with the hotel iron. Do it once and then cut it out because the grease is messing up everybody's clothes. Help load in the heavy gear. The band will notice and talk about it while you are not around. Your van will be robbed. Bring your laptop and the merch inside every single night. When your name is on the marquee, take a picture. You're allowed. Perform at least one song very well during sound check because the bartenders are listening and they are the viceroys here with the ear of the booker whose pen signs your check. Pick a city where you have a strong draw, preferably a sellout. Towards the end of the set, play your second biggest song, ask the band to loop the outro. Walk to the edge of the stage. Lift your arms. Take a small step that puts your toes just over. The front two rows are close enough to see what you are thinking. Rock back twice in time with the music to prime them, and then jump. Land on your back. Land on your back on their bed of palms. You will not feel weightless. You will feel the full heft of your grown body muscled up to the light by drunk people of varying heights. And you will want to lift your head to look back at your band, your friends on stage, to say, "This is crazy," or "Come and join me." But you don't have time for that because now you have to focus. Look up at the ceiling, the light trusses, the calcified smoke. Feel the fingers curl around your ankles. Listen to the voices below coordinating your safe passage. Make yourself into a battery to store this feeling because it is the currency of your life. And it is only ever dispensed this way, sandblasted. And there will be some months and some years where you will receive no payments at all, and you will have to draw on this reserve of elation and arrogance and selfishness and selflessness and communion while your friends buy dogs and houses. Mm-hmm. You can't steer really The crowd just puts you back on stage when it is time. Okay.
See, now look.
Okay.
Dessa.
Thank you all. What a treat.